Hello and welcome. For those of you just joining us today, my name's Jonathan Doe, and I like to collect artifacts and relics from infamous true crime cases. And this is my show, where I share with you pieces from that collection and the stories behind them. In today's episode, we're going to do something a little different, something a little special. We're not going to be going over an artifact, but instead be talking about the topic of hybristophilia, which is the paraphilia or fetish of being attracted to people who have committed violent crimes, specifically those who are attracted to serial killers and murderers. And to help me with this conversation, I'm going to be sitting down and talking with a woman who identifies as being a hybristophiliac, as well as a forensic psychologist, and even a serial killer who has regular conjugal visits with his fans. So this is going to be a wild one. Buckle up. This is Murderabilia Show and Tell. Before we can really dive into the meat of this video, I first need to introduce you to a man named Wiliam Holbert, also known as Wild Bill. Holbert is a serial killer and self-proclaimed hitman, currently serving time in Panama for the murder of 5 individuals.
Bill, I'm Vicki Mabry from Nightline, from New York.
How are you?
I'm okay. Did you kill those 5 people?
Not really getting at liberty to talk about my case.
This is the man Panamanian police say has confessed to 5 murders, killing his neighbors and friends to get their property and their cash. This island chain off the coast of Panama is where you come to escape from the rat race or the law. Most say it's paradise, but that all changed when a couple called Bill and Jane Cortez arrived a few years ago.
Bring it behind you. Stop right now!
He was wanted in the U.S. for various crimes, including alleged real estate schemes. He and his girlfriend left the United States altogether after eluding police during a high-speed chase.
And we're going up the hill, off-road, exit 1.
They arrived in Bocas in 2007 and quickly became a presence. He was known for his guns, his parties, and his trademark symbol, the skull and crossbones. Then, Americans began to disappear. First, there was Michael Brown, his wife, and teenage son. Cortez moved into their house. In 2009, Bo Eisler, a former gallery owner from New Mexico, seemed to split town all of a sudden, leaving his property behind. Wild Bill said he bought it, but things really started heating up in March when yet another person went missing. This time, it was Cheryl Hughes. 5 missing people with one common denominator: Bill Cortez. Police finally mounted an investigation into Wild Bill after an expat blogger broke and pursued the story. But by then, Wild Bill and Jane, really Wiliam Holbert and Laura Michelle Reese, were missing themselves. They had fled Bocas del Toro. Law enforcement finally caught up with them in Nicaragua. Reese is also being held now as an accomplice to murder. Armed with a warrant, police searched Hacienda Cortez. 5 bodies turned up. Cher Hughes, Bo Eisler, the entire Brown family. In back of the house Holbert allegedly bought from the Browns.
Earlier this year, I had Wiliam Holbert on my podcast to have him talk about his experiences, what his life is like in prison, and the crimes that he committed. Following the completion of that podcast episode, Holbert reached out to me again, saying that he'd be interested in doing more work together. He proposed the idea of doing an episode talking about the topic of hybristophilia and him sharing his experiences with the different women that he's met. It's important to keep in mind that Holbert is still incarcerated, and in order for him to be involved in this project, he had to communicate with me as well as the other individuals through a contraband phone that he has. And so all the following conversations could only be done with audio only. And considering the circumstances, at times the audio is not great. Hybristophilia is not something that's talked about regularly, and this very well may be the very first time that a fetishist, a psychologist, and a serial killer all talked about their experiences of this condition at length. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Hey everybody, Jonathan Doe here, and welcome to a very special episode of Murderabilia Show Tell. I'm sitting here with Wiliam Holbert, better known as Wild Bill, and we're going to be chatting with not only him, but with some individuals that he knows as well about the topic of hybristophilia, which is the paraphilia or fetish of being attracted to people who are criminals, have committed crimes, have committed murders, things like that. And Bill, you have quite a bit of history with meeting women who are hybristophiliacs, and this is a unique opportunity to kind of hear your experience with individuals like this. So, what can you tell us?
Well, the thing about it is, from my situation, I'm in a really unique life situation. Actually, I think there may be not anybody else in the whole world with the access to women that I've had and the situation. Just to give a little background on myself, my name's Wiliam Holbert. Everybody calls me Wild Bill. I'm 43 years old. I've been in prison for 13 years. Well, July of this year will be 13 years, and we're in February right now, or March, excuse me. It's the first day of March in 2023. I've been in prison going on 13 years. I was a hitman on the outside, very violent criminal. I'm convicted of some simple homicide, so I mean, like as bad as you want. I've got a difficult situation. Anyway, what happened to me was when I came to prison originally, I was married. I was married to my ex-wife, and I didn't get divorced until about 3 years after I had been through. And then when I got out of prison, when I got out of that marriage and I got divorced, I went through this period of time in which I was like really depressed. And to be honest with you, to be perfectly honest with you, I've been with a lot of women in my life and all this stuff, but I was kind of always nervous around girls. I always had a girlfriend, I always had a wife, I always was at parties, getting laid, things like that. But really to be intimate, intimately to know a woman or anything like that, I was really nervous around girls my whole life. I didn't have any sisters growing up. Anyway, so I learned that I was really attracted because of the fame of being this, I'm probably, without trying to brag or anything, just telling the truth, I'm probably the most famous criminal in the Republic of Panama. Everybody knows who Wild Bill is. So I didn't really realize the power of that criminal fame. And when I did realize it, what I did was this. I called the local newspaper, the biggest newspaper here, La Critica, and I put out just a story. I was like, hey, look, y'all, I'm in prison and I got a Facebook page. And they went ape shit. They went crazy. They said, Wild Bill in prison has a Facebook page. Holy shit. And this was a plan that I did. So, obviously the prison authorities came in and searched me and screamed at me and were very angry with me, and I didn't give a shit at all back in those days. And I opened this Facebook page, and back in those days, and I don't know if it's still that way, but back in those days you could only have 5,000 followers on Facebook, 5,000 friends, Facebook is friends. So Wild Bill has a Spanish language, for Panama Facebook page, and I got 15,000 friend solicitations, friend requests in one day. And I just went through and picked out all the good-looking women, and so I filled my 5,000 up with these cute chicks. And so being in a Panamanian prison where the rules are really different, I set up a deal with the authorities that I would get conjugal visits. You're supposed to be married to have a conjugal visit, and it's a big thing to set up. But if you got $100, you can pay the guards and get your conjugal visit every week. So I put a thing on Facebook. I said, I want some girl. Hi, this is Wild Bill. I want some girl to come to start a no strings attached sexual relationship. I got a conjugal visit on this day. Anybody interested? I got 800 women responded. I was like, oh shit. So that was really cool. And I learned to use the fame to get laid. I haven't been able to use the fame to make any money yet. I'm working on that right now. But from the time period from 2013 until 2016, and I ain't bragging, man, I'm just telling you what I did. And I think I did something that just about any man that had courage would do. I'm being honest with you, I was nervous around beautiful women. I was, I'm not anymore. and like really, really attractive women. You know, like I felt like, well, I don't deserve a woman like that or whatever. So I got over that shit real quick when like a whole bunch of them wanted to come and screw me. And I took full advantage of that situation. And between 2013 and 2016, I had sex with maybe 300 different women. And so, and I want to say a couple of things about that. First of all, it was fun. It was consensual. Everybody, I never lied to any of those women. I never used anybody. They knew what they were coming to do. They were excited about it. Like they would take photos. I would sneak a cell phone into the conjugal visit. We'd take photos so that they could go home and have photos of their time fucking Wild Bill. I mean, it seems crazy, but I mean, I'm just telling you how it is. And I think that like in the United States, I would guess, and it is a guess, or in England or in Australia, hybristophilia is a little bit more specific, meaning like women like men just because they're criminals. Here, I think those girls liked me just because I was famous, not necessarily because I was a criminal. That may have added to the mystique and the fun. But spending all that time with these women who were like ape shit for a famous killer, you know, it got me, I really got over my being nervous around women. I'm not nervous around women anymore, and I don't have any problem, you know, I always have the most beautiful women, you know, at my side. So I'm really lucky, blessed in that situation. What did I learn from that time period? I learned that most women really just respect strength. The hybrid, I guess you could say those women were all hybristophiliacs because they came to fuck up, you know, a hitman murderer, like famous criminal, you know, and that's kind of a spooky thing to do, really. I mean, you're going to be locked into a room for 2 hours with a man who's killed a shitload of people, you know, and it's a pretty crazy thing. For me, it was like, I was nervous. The first few times I was really nervous about it. I mean, like, you know, like this girl is just like a 10, you know, like she's coming to see me. And I'm like, I don't feel like I'm really, and back in those days, I didn't feel like I was like a 10, you know? And so, but then really quickly you get over that shit, that self-consciousness, as you know, it's just like anything else. You're not good at it until you do it. So another thing I did during that time period was I started to study sex, like really like a sport. And like really I played it like a sport, meaning I wanted to be really fucking good at it. And so I learned how to please and also I learned how to please a woman. I learned how the mechanics of sex, you know, and I learned how all women are really different. I mean, these are things I learned. We're talking about hybristophilia, not about Wild Bill's sex life, but in order to understand the situation, I think that it's important that we speak about all these things. And the women, they were like, most of them, all of them, but very few of those women, I thought that they were going to have like a relationship with me. And I think that a lot of them were sad when I cut it off to go find another girl. You know, I mean, I did that really fast. Like, I wouldn't see a girl more than twice. If I saw her more than twice, it wasn't that I got bored with her. It's just that I had all this huge sea of other women. And so a lot of them wanted to continue the sexual relationship, not so much a friendship. I mean, it was more of it certainly was a philia in that it wasn't an emotional situation. It was a sexual situation. Another thing I learned from those women is that sex is very psychological for a woman. Most, or if not all, of those women who are hybristophiliacs like to be dominated, like a lot, you know, and I am very dominant sexually, so that worked out really well. I don't think, you know, you didn't get too many, like, chicks come in that want to be in charge, so to speak. And that's one thing. Another thing is I think it's probably not, in my situation, it wasn't dangerous because I killed people on the contract, basically. It was a business proposition to me, so I'm not, like, really sick or anything, you know. But, like, I think a lot of chicks, like in the States, you know, there's no conjugal visits, so I think the hybristophilia is probably pretty safe, really. But in places where there are conjugal visits, and maybe you would have sex, like in Panama, like you would have sex with somebody that is, like, really depraved or something, it could be a very dangerous situation. I mean, the guy could kill the girl easily in a conjugal visit. I've never heard of that happening, ever, in Panama. I've been in prison 13 years, and I've never heard of a woman getting killed in a conjugal visit or even beat up or anything. I've never heard of it. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I think I would certainly have heard of it if somebody had been killed, because it's a tiny country. But is it a dangerous thing for the women to come and see? I think it's probably pretty fucking dangerous. I mean, here, I mean, you know, I didn't have any intentions back then of doing anything other than enjoying enjoying their bodies and their company. But like maybe some other man could could have like, you know, this like sexually depraved or something could have a, you know, it could be dangerous. So that's one thing. Another thing is that most of the women that came to see me were like normal women. Many of them were even married and shit. I mean, like most of them were like normal women living out a fantasy. And I have a lot of hybristophiliac friends, a lot, and we have a group, a Facebook group called Friends of Brother Bill. If you're listening to this and you'd like to know more about me or about the Wild Bill Hoes, that's what I call them. I was on a show about hybristophilia once, and we were talking about Ted Bundy. I said Ted Bundy has his hose, Ted Bundy hose. And then the girl that was on the show with me is a friend of mine. She said, yeah, but I'm a Wild Bill hoe. And I mean, like, these girls identify as Ted Bundy hoes. They identify as Wild Bill hoes. And so I just coined the term. I got my hose online. If I say, like, if I put a post online and say, I love my hose, we're my hose, like 65 women say, hey, Bill, we love you. No, you know, so I mean, these are women who have families. These are women who have children. These are women who work good jobs. They're not depraved, you know, weirdos. You know, when I think back about what I would have thought a hybristophiliac would have been, I would have thought it would have been some great big fat woman that couldn't get a man or something that lived in a trailer smoking 25,000 cigarettes a day. Or, you know, like somebody that would probably not be very desirable, and that's just not the case. Most hybristophiliac women are just fucking gorgeous and like functional, very functional women. So what does that tell us? I mean, what it tells me is that somebody's not being satisfied, and maybe they're looking for something to feel a little bit dangerous. I think that another thing I think, and I want to be real clear about this, I'm an avid anti-pansy-ass pussy boy-itis spokesman. I am an anti-pansy-ass pussy boy itis spokesman. What is pansy-ass pussy boy-itis? That's what is infecting Western men. When I say Western men, I'm talking about men in England, in the UK, United States, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. Men from the Western world, Canada. Men have become the new women. We're not masculine anymore. And women thought that they wanted us to be sensitive and shit like that. But what women really wanted was John Wayne, and they just didn't know it. And now that men have become these sniveling, whining little shits, women are really, really turned off, and they begin fucking each other even. I mean, because they can't find the masculinity that they need to feel okay. A lot of people won't like what I'm saying. It's controversial, I know that, but it's the fucking truth. It's not politically correct, but it's the fucking truth. We should stop being pillow biters, gentlemen, and go back to being real men. I'm the last John Wayne, baby, and that's why all the girls want to fuck me. This is good for you. If you're listening to this young man, good for you. If you're listening to this young woman, to understand the situation as it is. Most of those crazy desires to have sex with serial killers and shit like that, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, come from a lack of masculine men in the world. I mean, women like masculine men. And like Hollywood and everything, they want to push these little pansy asses on us as the new. This has to do with hybristophilia. I mean, I'm going off on a tangent. I realize that. But this has to do with hybristophilia. Why is this becoming so prevalent? Why are women looking to killers and shit like that for their sexual outlets? They're looking to killers for their sexual outlets basically because the masculinity in men has expired. You know, today's new Western man is a pansy-ass pussy boy, and he is not desirable. Women want somebody who can go out and kill dinner and bring it home, and they mistakenly think in their mind that somehow, you know, they can get that satisfaction, I think, from like this fantasy with serial killers or fantasy with violent criminals. Is there anything wrong with it? No. I'm thankful for it. I've used it to my advantage, you know, many hundreds of times. So I'm thankful for that. But at the same time, I would caution any woman with hybristophilia to think about the causes of why and why she feels that way. Just from a safety standpoint. I mean, I think it's fascination with serial killers is probably okay up to a point. But as we will hear later, our psychologist is going to talk a little bit, I think, about the difference between hybristophilia being passive and aggressive. And aggressive hybristophilia is like when a woman is like protecting a killer or like maybe she rented a car so a guy could go out and rape girls or something. can cross the line. Passive hybristophilia is when you're like dreaming about Ted Bundy or dreaming about Wild Bill, and you know, maybe touching yourself or something about and thinking about that. I think there's probably nothing wrong with that up to a point, but when it crosses the line and when you're doing stuff that you shouldn't be doing, I think then it becomes dangerous. Hybristophilia. God, I love you, Wild Bill hoes. I love my girls. They're so wonderful. Each and every one of them. They all have families. It's not something we take very seriously, you know. And friends of Brother Bill on Facebook, we don't take it very seriously. That's a pretty, you know, it's a pretty fun place for people to come. And I mean, like, I'd say that 80% of my, 80 or maybe even more percent of my members are women. And they, you know, and I love them. I get to know them. I know what, you know, I pay attention to them. I counsel them. You know, we have a lot of times if you have a problem, you ain't got nowhere else to go, you talk to Wild Bill. And that's a strange thing. Like, why the fuck would anybody do that? Because I'm pretty effective, actually. And so, I mean, it comes in a lot of different, it comes in a lot of, it's a strange package, actually, the hybristophilia thing with Wild Bill. My experiences with hybristophiliacs, women who have that philia, that sexual quote-unquote perversion, is super positive. And I love my girls, you know? And Daddy loves you, baby girls out there. If you're listening to this and you want to be one of Daddy's hosts, you just come on over and join us on Friends of Brother Bill at Facebook. I'll even ask John if he wants to stick the link in the description box of this here thing so you can come and find me afterwards. And we're really blessed here. I think that we're going to be able to talk to a psychologist and talk to a Ted Bundy hoe who is also a Wild Bill hoe a little further. John, did you have any questions?
Yeah, I've got two questions for you before we get the psychologist on. The first is, you talked about conjugal visits, and you're in a unique situation because you're in a Panama prison and rules are a little bit different there. So when you do have a conjugal visit and you do have someone come visit you, what does that look like? How much time do you guys have together? Are you guys completely left alone, or is there a guard there? What's it look like?
No, it's a completely alone situation. First of all, you're locked into there's a specific room for the conjugal visit. They bring the girl in first, drop her off, then they come and get you and bring you in. You can bring in an ice chest with like a foam ice chest with ice. You can bring in a fan, an electric fan. You can bring in food. Depends. A lot of it depends on the prison. Like where I am right now, there are no conjugal visits. I'm in a punishment section, believe it or not. But in the jail where I was before, it was a minimum security. The conjugal room just looked like a regular cheap hotel room. I mean, really, it had a small bed. The bed has like a rubber mattress or like a vinyl mattress on it that can be sprayed down with Clorox, and you have to bring your own sheets. You bring your own pillow, you know, anything like that. The girl can bring in like a sexy lingerie. She can bring in also one container of food, a pretty good sized container of food like hamburgers or pizza or whatever. Something to drink. The man does, and like that place, you didn't have to bring a fan because the room was air conditioned. It had a little bathroom on the side of it too, so it's like literally like a little hotel room. There they gave you 3 hours for a conjugal visit. It was really fun, really cool. You can have a lot of fun in 3 hours, you know. And like the girl brings food, but you don't usually eat in a conjugal visit. I mean, like, I'm there to fuck. I don't want to eat anything. I want to fuck. And because like I can eat in the cell, you know. And so I take the food, the good food that she brings, to just take that and carry it to the cell and eat it afterwards to like replenish strength. Anyway. And, like you get 3 hours with a girl and it's like really a sex Olympics because you want her to come back. And not only that, for me, like if you're having sex with your wife in a conjugal visit, that's one thing. Like, you know, you're spending that intimate time, you fucking, and you like hold each other, talk and laugh. But if you're just meeting some girl there, you're there for like sex Olympics. And so, I mean, like you throw and you rest 5 minutes, you throw again, you know, you're ready to go again because it's the whole reason you're there is that. So the conjugal visit is just like as if you went to think of it like if you were in the street and you went to one of them hotels that you rent by the hour. That's exactly what the conjugal visit feels like to me. I've never been in an hourly rate hotel in my life, but I mean, I think that that's what it would feel like. It seemed like that to me.
The second question I have is that you talked about that these women are into being dominated and things of that nature. with a hybristophiliac, they're attracted to crime. And so you being a convicted murderer, I was wondering if any of the women that you were with were interested in hearing about your crimes, hearing about, or have you reenact violent acts with them, anything of that nature while you were with them?
I don't know. That's not really my thing, and so I don't remember ever having done that or anything like that. Like, I think, like, a lot of those girls want to be choked. A lot of girls are like, that seems to be something pretty common, actually. But not just among hybristophiliacs. Like, girls today want to be choked. It's weird. It's kind of fun, actually. It's kind of cool. You got to be careful of that. I'm, like, pretty strong, so you can't get carried away with that shit. But like, they like to be abused just a little bit, I think, to make and a lot of them want to be raped. Obviously they're consensual, but they want to play rape, that sort of thing. That's all right with me too. To some degree, it's not really my thing either. I don't know. That's okay. But certainly most of those girls are on the fringe of what might be considered normal. Certainly not. It's not vanilla sex, so to speak. I mean, it's certainly on the fringe of like masochism, sadism and masochism, whatever. I can't remember, BDSM or whatever. It's on the fringe of that. But at the same time, I think that's what they're there for, I mean, like, I never had a woman ask me to reenact a crime. I remember one chick, I was like trying to think about. I remember one chick asking me, like, I'm choking her, and she's asking me, "Are these the hands that squeeze the life out of people?" I've never strangled anybody, but I'm like, yes, of course, just because she's getting off on it. And so I mean, like, yes and no. I mean, like, I've never had anybody say like specifically. But again, I think that my situation here is a bit different because I'm dealing with girls that some of them may not even be considered hybristophiliacs. They just wanted to fuck Wild Bill because he's famous. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that's actually the majority of them, actually, if you want the truth. But there are some of the girls a little bit darker, and those would be like the hybristophiliacs, that are like that do ask questions and stuff like, how was it? How did it feel to kill somebody? Shit like that, Like, I'm like, shut up, I'm here to fuck, I ain't here to answer questions, And so no, I'm not like, shut up, but I mean, like, okay, girl, I must fuck, I don't want to talk about that shit. And so I mean, yeah, I guess so, in some form, but I've never done any play acting, no. That doesn't even sound fun. That would probably make me go limp. I don't even like to think about the things I did.
The last question I have before we get onto your psychologist friend is, I'm a member of your Friends of Brother Bill group, and you have a lot of women from all over the world that talk to you on there. And and I'm sure like you've met a lot of people in person, but what are the relationships like with the women that you have that are around the world who can't meet you physically? Do they want to sext with you? Do they want to talk about your crimes or anything like that? Like, what's the relationship with them like?
It's very varied, actually. I mean, like, a lot of girls send pictures immediately, and are like, you want to fuck me? Let's make a video call or whatever. And then a lot of other girls are like just interested, and they call me and they say the first thing they say, "I'm not a fangirl," and they're not. I mean, they're actually not. The girl says, "I'm not a fangirl," is probably not a fangirl, Mm-hmm. And then there are girls that just call and be like, "Hey, can we have sex? Because or whatever. Like, can we do a video call?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's do that." And then there are like girls that like it's weird, but I do a lot of counseling, man. I mean, like, I really care about my people. I love my girls. I love my hoes. And like, people are listening to this, be like, "What a fucking asshole is Bill." Maybe you think that, but I actually really do love them, and I worry about them. And like, they ask me all kind of questions about anything and everything, about addiction, questions about relationships with their partner. And I try to be as helpful as I possibly can in every one of those situations. I don't take anything from anybody. I don't abuse anybody. I don't use anybody. Never would I use any of those wonderful women, because I love them. They're my friends. And I think that, like, a lot of them, I know about their families. I know some of their families. I mean, I actually I've known them long enough to know their families and their mothers and their brothers and stuff come and speak to me and stuff. So I mean, like, we've become a community. I have a group on Facebook. We don't talk anything about sex there. We talk about, it's like a self-help, not self-help, it's like a group help. It's like a group, like a support group. Online, we talk, we keep each other. I mean, most of them are women. There are a few guys there. more women, and I think that the relationship that I have with the women is so varied, man, that it's like difficult to say. Most of the sexual relationships don't last very long. Girl comes in, you know, a couple of weeks with that shit, and then she's like, you know, I get bored with it pretty quick, to be perfectly honest with you. And then she gets bored with me not responding anymore and kind of moves on. So I mean, like the sexual relationship, but then I have like a relationship with a lot of women. I have a relationship with a girl from California who is kind of a new relationship, and that's just incredible. I have a dear friend in Poland, a dear friend friend in England. Not more than one. If you want to remember, I have like 4 or 5 dear friends in England, girls who are just wonderful mothers and family, and we are like a family, like a really functional family of dysfunctional people. And so if you're looking for somewhere you don't fit in, you feel like you don't fit in anywhere, I mean, you can come and see us on Facebook at Friends of Brother Bill and see if you fit in there, because the one thing is I'm like really politically incorrect. I don't believe in this new bullshit. You can't say what you think and so on and so forth. I tell it like it fucking is, you know? And also, I believe very much in the law of attraction. I believe very much in the law of the harvest. And I believe very much in the law of gratitude and the law of the mind. And basically all that shit wrapped up together says, whatever you think about comes to pass. I want good things for my friends. I want good things for my hoes. I love my Wild Bill hoes. I want good things for them. And so good things from them come to me. I write a column every day on Friends of Brother Bill. It's called Musings from Hell. And we talk about how we should treat each other. We talk about, you know, like not giving up. We talk about all kinds of positive things. So my relationship with those women is so varied. It varies from strictly sexual and animal to being almost like a big brother or something.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to cover before we move on to talking to the psychologist?
No, not really. I think that we can move on. I wanted to invite everybody again to come and see us on Friends of Brother Bill. Also, I've got a YouTube channel right now. It's kicking. It's an audio diary that I'm doing about my life in hell here in the third world prison. It's pretty amazing, you know? And a lot of people don't know this. After listening to all of this, I'm going to freak everybody out by telling them I'm the pastor of the church here on the inside of hell. And what? This asshole is a pastor of the church? I am the pastor of the church. And what I do all day long, every day, 24 hours a day, really, is I'm helping other people. I try to keep these kids. I'm 43 years old, and I'm like the grandpa here. I'm like the old guy, you know. And like the median age here is like 21. And so most of these kids are 18, 19 years old. They just come in off the street from killing somebody, or from robbing, or from doing something bad, and they don't know. And they're members of gangs, and they don't have a future. Some of them can't even read and write. So what we're trying to do, what we're actually doing, ain't trying to do shit. What we are doing is helping these kids get off the gang life, get out of the gangs and stuff. So if you guys want to hear about that, check out Life Inside Hell. I'll send that link as well over to John. Maybe he can post it for us. Life Inside Hell, and then come and see me on Friends of Brother Bill. I wrote a book. It's called Long Live the King Wild Bill. I'm just going to prostitute the shit out of myself right now while I'm on here. I wrote a book called Long Live the King Wild Bill. Long Live the King Wild Bill. That's available on Amazon. Once you go buy the damn thing, because every time you buy one, I get $4, and it would help me out a lot. So I love you guys. Thanks guys for listening. Let's come and have a talk with my friend Caralyn Dreyer, who's a forensic psychologist. Hey everybody, it's me, Brother Wild Bill, coming to you from inside the most dangerous prison in the Western Hemisphere. We've got a real treat today on the show. We've got Caralyn Dreyer here. I am serving a 46-year sentence for quintuple homicide inside the most dangerous prison in Central America, where I've been in prison for 13 years, and I'm the prison's chaplain. We have Caralyn Dreyer with us today, who's a forensic psychologist. She's a mother, a successful mother, and a stone fox on top of that. Beautiful woman. And so today we're talking about the hybristophilia. Caralyn, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So for everybody listening, this is a 3-way call. Jonathan Doe here. And so I guess my first question for you, Caralyn, is could you give us kind of a definition of hybristophilia in terms of a way that listeners can really understand?
I can, absolutely. So basically, hybristophilia is characterized as a sexual interest in and attraction to those who commit crimes. And in some cases, this could be, a woman's attracted to somebody who's in prison for a certain criminal activity. I mean, typically if you look this topic up, serial killers like Ted Bundy, they have their little groupies or whatever you'd want to call it. But I guess somebody who would be attracted to someone like Ted Bundy would be characterized as having hybristophilia. And to go a little more in depth, the suffix of philia actually means an abnormal craving or an abnormal attraction.
Thank you.
Caralyn, do you feel, Caralyn, that hybristophilia is a dangerous condition for a woman to have?
That would depend on the degree of hybristophilia the person has. There's passive hybristophilia versus aggressive hybristophilia, and a woman who would have aggressive hybristophilia is someone who would actually be willing to partake in criminal activities, cover up a crime. They would maybe lure victims in. So I guess in terms of danger, you could look at, there's legal ramifications, obviously, if you're involved in the commission of a crime. In terms of danger towards the female, that's kind of hard to say. I guess it would depend on the dynamics of the relationship. But again, also, if the person they're attracted to is locked up and, they don't ever have physical contact with one another, I would not say that's necessarily dangerous. I guess the danger would lie in, is that a healthy relationship? So mental health-wise, I would say that's probably not the best choice. But, physical danger, I guess it would just depend on what the dynamics of the relationship are and if the person that the woman is attracted to is even, around them physically, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Understand.
How, within the clinical setting, what is hybristophiliac looked like? Is it a abnormal characteristic, or is it statistically, how common is it?
Well, it's hard to comment really on any statistical information, and the reason for that is just it's an under-researched topic. But I guess one of the factors related to someone who would have hybristophilia is that they are quite possibly a victim of physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. So, sorry about that. I was getting a call. I lost my train of thought there.
We were talking about the normality of hybristophilia.
Yeah, I mean, okay, to someone who's used to a traditional relationship, someone with hybristophilia, that would be considered abnormal. But I would say that somebody who's involved in it, if they are used to a pattern of abuse in relationships and everything, they probably wouldn't see necessarily anything wrong. I mentioned to someone I was going to be doing this interview, and they were like, oh my gosh, that sounds like such a crazy condition. And I was like, if you break it down, essentially it's an attraction to somebody who has committed a crime, which, in today's society, is that abnormal? I guess it would depend on who you would ask, but by traditional relationship standards, I would say that's characterized as abnormal.
Caralyn, is there, or should there be, if there's not, is there or should there be, if there's not, a treatment for active or, as you said, aggressive cases of hybristophilia?
Well, actually, when I had researched the topic of treatment, most likely someone who would be treated for this condition would be someone who's an aggressive hybristophiliac. But again, because there's limited research, it's kind of hard to say what type of treatment would be effective. When I did look it up, like cognitive behavioral therapy was something that was mentioned. Another type of treatment would maybe be like a support group, such as one that would be used for sex addiction. But the basic underlying thing would be that the person would, number one, have to acknowledge, you know, that they have abnormal behavior, but number two, they'd have to be willing to undergo treatment, and you really would just have to get to the root of the problem, like why are they seeking out this type of relationship? Because if you don't get to the root of it, you know, treatment would be ineffective, in my opinion.
Is hybristophilia something that's recognized within the DSM, and is there like any kind of treatment directions that people can go to? Like you talked about cognitive behavioral therapy. Are there people who specialize in treating this condition?
That actually is something I don't know. I guess in my opinion, like right off the top of my head, since I don't know like a direct answer to that question, it would seem like you could compare it to treatment for sex offenders. You have one side that would say, yeah, absolutely, you know, they can be treated for that. But then you have the other side where it's like, no, there's no way to treat somebody with that. I mean, I think it's close to like any kind of condition that you would have where like, what's the severity of it? What are the risk factors? Is this person amenable to any type of treatment? And as far as it being recognized as a diagnosed condition, I also don't have the answer for that either. This is kind of a new topic that I've never looked into, but you know, there's a lot of philias that are in the manual, and also it would just depend too on the frequency of them updating the conditions that are in there. Sorry I couldn't be more helpful with that answer.
Oh, no problem.
Caralyn, you've been so helpful, and on this show we're exploring hybristophilia, and we're going to talk some about my experiences with hybristophiliacs, being a person who has committed violent crime. But we want to take a moment and thank Caralyn Dreyer, who is an extremely interesting and accomplished forensic psychologist. Caralyn, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody, I'm excited because hey, listen to me, Wild Bill, and I'm really excited because we have Mary here with us. Mary is a beautiful woman, a young, vibrant woman. She's got a good job. She's a good citizen. She's also a Ted Bundy hoe, and to a much lesser degree, a Wild Bill hoe. She's an admitted hybristophiliac, and she's an excellent person, a dear friend of mine, and we're really happy to have Mary on the show. Mary, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Bill. Glad to be here.
John, would you like to take the first question?
Yeah. When did you recognize that you had hybristophilia, and what is it about dangerous individuals that you find attractive?
Well, when I was 14, I saw The Silence of the Lambs, and I instantly fell in love with Hannibal Lecter. He was just so eloquent, educated, intelligent, mesmerizing. And I was on my knees in front of the TV watching. My friend was hiding behind the sofa. I couldn't understand why he was there. I just thought he was just amazing.
Mary, tell us about your love affair with Ted Bundy.
Well, that happened during lockdown. Like everyone else, I had a lot of time in my hands. And I picked up a book about Bundy, and I read it. And then, because I had so much time in my hands, I started researching him and just found him to be very fascinating.
within your attraction to these kind of individuals, what is it that you fantasize about? Like, what is it that you're attracted to? Do you worry about, like, say that you did have a relationship with one of these individuals, do you worry about them hurting you, or do you fantasize about them hurting you?
Well, that's a hard one to answer. I think these dangerous individuals have a certain quality that draws you to them. I mean, Ted Bundy has these piercing blue eyes that go black whenever he's in a rage, you know, and it's a sort of the power that they exert over people as well. Like, you find yourself drawn to it in a way. I can't really describe it. That's the best way I can describe it.
My question is this. You know, there's a lot of people that get down on women, especially that like serial killers like Ted Bundy and even Wild Bill Hose, you know, our friends that are in the group. What would you like to say to anybody who would get down on somebody that is a Ted Bundy enthusiast? Well, I mean, there are things that annoy me about Ted. I don't like how he describes his method in third person, and he has a very obtuse way of speaking. So I understand if people think I'm sick in the head, but I mean, physically he would be my ideal man. It's just tragic that he happens to be a serial killer. You know, but I mean, it's not something I have any control of, and I don't condone any of his crimes or anything.
Have you ever pursued a relationship with someone who's dangerous, or is this more just like a fantasy that you have in your private life?
Well, I was once in a relationship that sort of started becoming abusive, which I found very devastating, and it took me a while to remove myself from that situation. And I suppose what made me quite scared was the fact that this individual's eyes would turn black when he was in a temper as well. And I was rather disturbed at the fact that I found out a slight turn on and I didn't understand why. But I knew I had to get away for my own good.
Mary girl, thank you so much for being on the show. We love you. We appreciate you. Mary is part of our group on Facebook called Friends of Brother Bill. And if you'd like to talk to me, Brother Wild Bill, come and check us out there. Mary, thank you for having a three-way with me and Jonathan. You said this is your first three-way. Well, I'm glad that we got to break you in, girl.
It was my pleasure, Bill.
I love you, baby girl. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, thanks, Charlie. Hey, John, I'm gonna go through the whole lockdown bullshit that we have to do here in about 15 minutes, and then I'll text you back. I got a couple of questions for you.
Okay, right on. Sounds good.
That concludes today's episode of Murderabilia Show Tell. I hope you found this discussion interesting, and please consider giving this channel a subscription. Until next time, I'm Jonathan Doe.